Picture the market square at Chelmsford in 1566. The kind of crowd that makes you wonder whether anybody in town stayed home that day. People are packed shoulder to shoulder, children climbing on wagon wheels for a better view, ballad sellers shouting over each other as they waved their freshly printed sheets. At the center of it all stood Agnes Waterhouse, a grandmother accused of witchcraft with a black cat said to speak in a man's voice. It was equal parts spectacle, sermon, and sheer morbid curiosity. So, because so many of you asked after the last video we did on Tudor true crime and broadsheets, we're diving back in. Tudor England had a thriving crime media industry long before Netflix and true crime podcasts existed. Pamphlets, woodcuts, street-sung ballads turned local scandals into national sensations. Today, we are going to look at a couple of the most striking cases of the 16th century, murder as well as witchcraft, each shaped and amplified by the early world of printed crime. Hey friend, welcome back to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast. I am your host, Heather, and I've been podcasting on Tudor England since 2009, which of course makes my show the original Tudor History Podcast. I am just tickled pink that you decided to join me today to talk about some really sensational Tudor true crime. If you've ever wondered how a single courtroom drama in Essex could turn into a story everyone from London to York seemed to know, the answer is simple. Tudor true crime went viral through print and performance. Most people still couldn't read, although that was growing, of course, because of the Reformation, printing press, all of that. But Tudor pamphlets weren't designed to sit in someone's hands and be read. They were read aloud in taverns. They were sold in busy markets and shouted by hawkers who acted out the juiciest parts to pull in a crowd. Printers mixed fragments of real court testimony with dramatic flourishes and heavy moral lecturing. A poisoning became a warning against lust and disobedience. A neighborhood quarrel became proof that the devil was lurking in England's hedgerows. Timing was everything. Pamphlets were often released right before an execution, ensuring a sea of potential buyers. These stories fed the deep anxieties about marriage, servants, inheritance disputes, and the growing fear of witchcraft. And once they spread, they stayed, retold, sung, and reprinted until they became part of Tudor everyday culture. Let's get started with the murder of Thomas Arden of Faversham in 1551, a domestic killing that became the most famous true crime story of Tudor England. If you want a Tudor murder that genuinely gripped the public imagination, nothing beats the 1551 killing of Thomas Arden, a well-connected Kentish gentleman whose own household arranged his death. The ringleader was his wife, Alice Arden. She was having an affair with Richard Mosby, who was a tailor of lower status, and this affair was an open secret in town. Their relationship alone pushed every Tudor anxiety button: adultery, class boundaries, and a wife stepping far outside her expected place. Now, Alice and Mosby first tried subtle approaches, poisoning attempts, staged accidents, but nothing was working. So they hired two London hard men with names straight out of an Elizabethan heist movie, Black Will and Shake Bag. Even with professional help, the plot went comically wrong several times. Somebody needs to make a movie of this. Black Will once hid behind a curtain in an inn, only to sneeze loudly and ruin the ambush. Another time, he waited on a roadside to club Arden, but sudden fog let the victim slip past unseen. Finally, on February 14th, 1551, Valentine's Day, the group attacked Arden after supper. They dragged the body outside into a nearby field to make it look like a random street assault. But it snowed after the murder, and then stopped, leaving Arden's body exposed in the field while a trail of footprints led directly back to the Arden home. Investigators just had to follow the prints. They found bloodstains and hastily cleaned rushes inside, and the entire conspiracy unraveled instantly. The aftermath was as dramatic as the murder itself. Mosby was hanged, Alice was burned, and multiple accomplices were executed. The case became so well known that it appeared in Holinshed's Chronicles and then inspired the anonymous 1590s play Arden of Faversham, now considered the first major domestic tragedy in English drama. Ballads spread the story even further. This was not just crime, this was like a whole cultural event. Next up, the murder of John Brewen in 1592. This is like a printed pamphlet that reads just like a Tudor tabloid. If Arden of Faversham became famous through drama, the death of John Brewen, a London clothworker, became famous through the printing press. The pamphlet describing the case, The Truth of the Most Wicked and Secret Murdering of John Brewen, was published in 1592 and survives in multiple copies. It's one of the clearest examples of how printers shaped public understanding of crime. The pamphlet describes a classic domestic conspiracy. John Brewen's wife, Margaret, fell in love with another man, a young gentleman named George Brown. Rather than risk exposure, Margaret and Brown allegedly began plotting Brewen's murder. I mean, why not? Their first attempts used kind of subtle means, just like the other one. The pamphlet claims that she tried to poison her husband gradually. But when that failed, the pair resorted to brute force. Brown and hired accomplices attacked Brewen near his home, beating him so severely that he died shortly afterwards. But what makes this case so interesting is the pamphlet about it. It's structured like a morality play, laying out Margaret's growing sin, her infatuation, her betrayal of household order, and the moment when simple desire crossed into violence. The text claims to present the true confession, but the language is, of course, heavily stylized, full of warnings to husbands, wives, and servants. It's true crime Tudor style, part fact, part sermon, like all entertainment. The pamphlet also shows just how printers understood their market. It includes a long account of Margaret's emotional corruption, dialogue shaped for perfect dramatic effect, vivid descriptions of the attack, the community's shock at the crime, and the divine justice revealed through the investigation. In other words, it's not neutral reporting. It's crafted to hold attention, stir emotion, and sell for a penny at Paul's Cross or London Bridge, the Tudor equivalents of mass market distribution. The Chelmsford witch trials of 1566 show something even more potent: how fear, rumor, and neighborly resentment could be transformed into supernatural crime through the power of print. At the center of this wave stood Agnes Waterhouse, a woman in her 60s who became the first person in England executed for witchcraft under a new statute with a surviving printed record. Agnes didn't begin as a dramatic figure. She lived in Hatfield Peveril, a village where small disputes over loans, animals, and household goods could simmer for years. When a neighbor's child fell ill or a pig died soon after, suspicion would drift towards her. This kind of escalation was common. People looked for patterns, and in a community where everyone knew each other's frustrations, it didn't take much for ordinary misfortune to feel targeted. The pamphlet that followed her trial, titled The Examination and Confession of Certain Witches at Chelmsford, shaped her story in a much more theatrical direction. Now, it claimed that Agnes kept a familiar spirit in the form of a black and white cat named Satan. According to the text, the cat acted as a kind of domestic devil, speaking in a low voice, demanding drops of blood, and offering help with petty revenge. These details come from the testimony of Agnes's daughter, Joan, who found herself questioned in a room full of magistrates and ministers. Her words became the heart of the pamphlet, polished and expanded to create a gripping story that readers could not put down. This case wasn't isolated. It wasn't the only one like it. Agnes's niece, Elizabeth Frances, had also been tried earlier on similar charges. Together, their stories fed a growing belief that Essex was becoming a center of witchcraft. Printers recognized the appeal. The pamphlet combined courtroom exchanges, confessions, and invented dialogue into something part documentary, part very dark entertainment. Agnes Waterhouse was hanged at Chelmsford before this packed crowd. Ballad sellers were already offering songs about her crimes. To the audience, the story felt complete. A dangerous woman, a demonic cat, and a justice system enforcing order. But beneath the sensationalism lay the same forces that shaped so many Tudor trials: personal grievances, village politics, and a legal world eager to make examples of those who lived on the margins. What links murders and witchcraft confession in Chelmsford isn't the crime itself, but the way that the stories were shaped once they hit the presses. Printers knew that a troubled marriage, a suspicious illness, or a neighborhood feud could become something far larger if told with enough flair. A woodcut of a scheming wife or a talking cat didn't just illustrate a case, it fixed the story in people's minds. Pamphlets would turn local trouble into public cautionary tales. And because they were performed out loud, the details spread even to those who never saw the printed page. These crimes stayed alive in ballads, in gossip, and later reprints, long after the people involved were gone. In a world that was hungry for drama, Tudor true crime found an audience that never seemed to tire of a good scandal. So we will leave it there for now. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, chatting about some more Tudor true crime stories. My daughter is super into true crime. I never got into it. I think maybe that skips a generation. I don't know. Anyway, I know that a ton of people are super popular. So hopefully if you are, you enjoyed this. If you did, please go ahead and press that like button. It helps to feed the algorithm and get our content to more people. And if I don't already have it, I hope I earned your subscription to my channel where I put out content like this on the regular. If you would like to continue watching true crime content, I did a podcast episode a few months ago on some more of these stories and particularly looking at how women were treated in the justice system. So here is a link to that. Or here is a video that YouTube thinks you'll like. Remember, you are deeply loved, my friend. I am so glad I share the planet with you. You make the world a better place, and I'm grateful we get to spend this time together. I'll be back very soon. In the meantime, don't forget to drink your water. Bye-bye, friend.